Hey guys, Max from Max Welds here. Today we're going to be making a tabletop Cardinal, roughly 12 to 14 inches tall. Let's jump right into it. As always, I start with a reference photo. I liked the pose of this Cardinal sitting on a branch, so I'm replicating that. If I just made the entire bird that tall, that'd be a pretty big bird. So I chose to have it perched on this kind of stand, emulating a branch or kind of like a pet of some sort. I had this old air compressor that I used for a few other projects, so I'm going to take my plasma cutter to it and start cutting 3D jigsaw puzzle pieces to make the shell of a bird so that it's not too heavy sitting on a desk. Please bear with me when it comes to my plasma cutting skills. They are just as good as my left-hand drawing skills. So this is a newer machine for me, so I'm still working out all of the kinks on how to fine-tune cutting different materials around convex shapes and whatnot. Kind of an ambitious project to start, but it worked out at the end. Because we're just dealing with sheet metal, I am able to alter and bend the shape with a few wrenches to get the exact form that I want. I absolutely love that this air compressor was already red, so it was a perfect material choice for the Cardinal. Now it is just drawing and cutting all the different little pieces and parts for this bird. Kind of started out with thinking these would be the main wings, but as it continued, I had a few other different larger quote-unquote feathers that helped with this. The face or the head of this bird was a pretty complicated shape, so I had a few tries for cutting this out, but ended up finding this kind of weird tapered heart shape to be the best. And then again, just wrapping that around itself to get that top feather and front face look. Laying everything out, we have a nice little cut template for the Cardinal. So here is how those pieces are hopefully going to work once I weld them all together. The most important part of starting something like this is getting the side profile correct. Then you can build out the width of the animal. So this is what I'm doing now. Then it is just a process of filling in all the holes. So using all those quote unquote feather pieces that I cut out and making sure everything looks symmetrical and tacking them all together. With this sculpture being a tabletop sized piece, I have to make sure that it is not a razor blade. So grinding down the majority of the sharp edges, but doing my due diligence to make sure it doesn't nick or cut a finger the second you touch it. Next is working on the beak. So cutting out these rounded based triangles in two different sizes to do the upper and lower beak. I bend them in a kind of half round shape, again for the upper and lower portion. The larger one is going to be on the top, and the smaller one is the lower jaw of the beak. Here's what they look like, just roughly shaped in, stacked on top of each other. And tacked into place, you can see the bird finally has that iconic cardinal look. For the branch part of this, I am using a piece of rebar that I cleaned up with a wire wheel. I'm heating it and bending it. Kind of a complicated shape, so I'm putting a good amount of effort and time into getting this right. Again, making sure that there are no major sharp edges rounding the front of this, just so in case this falls, it doesn't land in someone's hand and puncture or damage the table it's sitting on. For the base, I'm going to be using this large gear that I had. That's been all nice and cleaned up, and it's the perfect size and weight so that if someone nudges or knocks this bird, that it won't necessarily fall over without some significant effort. Now I am sculpting the beak, making sure all those sharp edges are off, and doing another once over with the flap disc to clean up all the last sharp edges on the bird. The feet are going to be made out of these wood screws that I have. I'm going to snip the tops off of most of them to get different toe lengths and then tack them all together and heat them up, bend them to curl them around the branch. I'm using an old spare bolt that is roughly the same diameter as the rebar, just because this is a little more manageable to bend the toes around for the feet versus struggling with the base in my left hand. I do a test fit on the base and then tack the feet together so I'm not dealing with a single foot and something could get skewed away. I then tack that to the bird and then the bird to the base. Last but not least is the touch mark, the MW logo with the year that I made this. Alrighty guys, that is the Cardinal. I'm really pleased with how this turned out, kind of using the plasma cutter to make 3D puzzle pieces and then put them all together to build out the bird. Kind of new for my style, but I really like the process and I'll be doing more. Thanks for watching.